You know, we hear all the time about how construction impacts the environment.
Yeah.
Like just making concrete. There's so much carbon released.
It's a huge problem.
But what if?
If.
What if there was a way to actually build stuff that was good for the planet?
Almost sounds like magic, doesn't it?
It does. And that's kind of what we're looking at today.
Oh, cool.
It's this article from Research Directions, Biotechnology Design. It's called Building Smarter. Scientists grow stronger materials using cyanobacteria.
Okay.
Basically using bacteria in sand to make building materials.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, so we're going to unpack how all that works.
All right.
And what it could mean, for the future.
Sounds like one of those things that makes you really rethink what's possible.
Exactly. So first off, what are cyanobacteria? Why are they the stars of this whole thing?
So cyanobacteria are this type of bacteria, and they use photosynthesis, just like plants,
Okay.
to get energy from the sun.
Right.
But the really interesting thing is that they can turn carbon dioxide into solid stuff,
Oh, wow.
including calcium carbonate,
Which is?
which is like, it's in limestone and shells.
So they're like little tiny construction workers
Yeah.
taking the CO2 and
Yep.
turning it into
Exactly.
building blocks.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
That's wild.
And that's why it's so exciting to use them for this.
Yeah.
Because it means you could make, strong buildings, but actually help with the emissions problem.
So there's this term I saw in here. It's additive cofabrication.
Uh-huh.
It sounds very high tech.
It is.
It is.
What is that?
Well, it's kind of like you take robotics
Okay.
and you combine it with biology, biological processes.
Okay.
So picture a robot that can put down layers of sand
Right.
mixed with these cyanobacteria.
So it's a 3D printer, but with sand and bacteria.
That's a good way to think about it.
Instead of plastic.
Yeah, and as the bacteria grow,
Uh-huh.
they deposit the calcium carbonate.
And that acts as a binder. It makes the sand much stronger.
So you're using photosynthesis to literally make building materials stronger.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It really shows how much potential there is in working with nature
Yeah.
to come up with these new solutions.
So it sounds like they've actually built this
They have.
robot system to do this.
Yeah.
Which is a huge step from just,
From the lab
yeah.
to something real.
Okay, so let's say this does work. This technology takes off.
Takes off.
What could this mean for construction?
I mean, the researchers seem pretty excited.
Yeah.
They're talking about a whole new era of sustainable construction.
Okay.
Imagine buildings that they don't just use less concrete, but they actually help pull CO2 out of the air.
As they're being built?
As they're being built.
That's a game changer.
It would be.
So what would that be like for just the average person?
Well, think about it.
Okay.
If we can scale this up,
Right.
we could have more affordable houses that are also good for the environment.
Okay.
Offices, even whole cities.
Designed to be sustainable.
Yeah, designed with that in mind.
It's crazy that something so tiny,
I know.
like bacteria, could have that much impact
Yeah, it really does.
on how we build things.
It really challenges what we think is possible, right?
Okay, so we covered a lot.
Yeah.
Quick recap before we go deeper.
Sure.
So we started with this idea of using bacteria,
Bacteria.
specifically cyanobacteria, as an ingredient.
As a building material.
Building materials.
Yeah.
And they use photosynthesis to
make that binder.
right, to make the sand stronger.
Exactly.
And they've actually made a robotic system
They have,
to
yeah.
deposit all this stuff. So that's a big step towards making it real.
Huge step.
And then we talked about the impact on construction, on the environment.
Yeah, what it could mean, for the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah, building things that help fight climate change.
Instead of making it worse.
Instead of making it worse, wild stuff.
It is pretty wild. It's it changes how we think about building, doesn't it?
Yeah, when I think construction, it's big machines, concrete trucks, dust everywhere.
Right.
Now I'm picturing tiny bacteria just
Working away.
working away
Yeah.
quietly,
It's a whole different perspective.
making these strong materials.
It is, yeah.
That's
It shows how, sometimes you got to think outside the box
so cool.
to find these really cool solutions.
So they get into some of the specifics.
Yeah.
They mention using 2 specific kinds of cyanobacteria.
Yeah.
What makes these special?
So they chose Synechococcus SPPCC 7002
Okay.
and Secocystis SPPCC 6803.
Catchy names.
Yeah. Well, these ones are known for being really good at producing that calcium carbonate.
So they're like
They're like the pros.
the expert bricklayers.
Yeah, exactly. The best at their job.
In the bacteria world.
In the bacterial world, yeah.
But how do they actually track what these bacteria are doing?
That's a good question.
They're so tiny.
They are. So they used pretty advanced techniques to see like how active they are.
Okay.
So they measured things like the optical density and fluorescence.
I don't know what those are.
Well, basically it lets them see how much the bacteria are growing.
Okay.
And how much of that calcium carbonate they're making.
So they have ways to keep an eye on their little workforce.
Exactly. Make sure everything's running smoothly.
That's really neat.
It is. But, they're also thinking about the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
Like, this is all amazing research, but there's got to be some challenges to, actually using this.
Right, to getting this to work in the real world.
Exactly.
So what are some of the hurdles?
Scaling up is a big one.
What does that mean?
So right now, it's all kind of small scale in the lab.
Right.
Figuring out how to make tons of this stuff.
Yeah.
That's going to take some serious engineering.
It's one thing to make a little brick.
Yeah.
It's another to make enough for a whole building.
Exactly. And then there's durability.
What's that?
We need to make sure it lasts.
Okay.
That it can handle weather, different climates, time.
You don't want your bacteria house to, dissolve in the rain.
That's the idea. We got to make sure it's safe and reliable for years.
Okay. That makes sense.
And then there's the cost.
Right.
New tech is usually expensive at first.
Yeah.
So figuring out how to make this affordable compared to, regular building.
Like concrete and stuff.
Yeah, like concrete. That's going to be key.
Some challenges, but even with those,
Oh, yeah?
the potential is huge.
It is.
I mean, imagine if we could actually build in a way that helps the environment.
Instead of hurting it.
Instead of hurting it.
Game changer for the industry.
Yeah, it's a whole planet, really.
Absolutely.
I'm also curious about, they mentioned this a little.
Yeah.
Using this for other stuff, not just buildings.
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, like what?
So if we can make strong stuff, sustainable stuff, from bacteria and sand, what else could we use it for?
Yeah.
Furniture, packaging.
What about, even medical implants?
They even mention that.
Wait, bacteria inside your body?
Well, some bacteria are already used in medicine.
Oh, right.
Not all bacteria are bad.
Right.
A lot of them are actually helpful.
Okay.
It's about picking the right ones and making sure it's safe.
So, rigorous testing.
Exactly. So, yeah, you could use these materials to make, lots of different things.
And they'd be strong and sustainable.
That's the idea.
Across all kinds of industries.
Yeah, it's about opening up these new possibilities and, looking at nature for inspiration.
I like that.
That's something they really emphasize in the article.
Oh, okay.
We need architects working with biologists.
That's cool.
To really explore all this.
Two totally different fields coming together.
And that's where the really cool stuff happens, you
Yeah.
know, when you break out of those silos.
Okay, so what's next for this whole bacterial building thing?
Well, they say we need more research.
Okay.
More development to figure out those challenges we talked about.
Right, like scaling it up, making sure it lasts.
Yeah, all that.
And making it affordable.
Exactly, but it's not just about the technical stuff.
Yeah.
It's also about, changing how we think.
About building.
About building, about design.
Yeah.
Really embracing this idea of working with nature.
Not just using bacteria, but
But a whole new approach.
Yeah, a whole philosophy.
Exactly. It's realizing that nature has the answers if we look for them.
I like that. All right, let's take a minute, kind of step back and recap what we've learned in this whole deep dive.
Okay.
So we started with what sounded like a pretty wild idea.
Pretty wild.
Bacteria, to make building materials stronger.
Right.
But then as we dug in, it's not as crazy as it sounds.
Not at all.
Cyanobacteria, these little guys,
Tiny but mighty.
they can actually take CO2 and turn it into that binder.
The calcium carbonate, yep.
That makes the sand so strong.
Exactly.
And they've actually made a robot to mix it all together, like a bio 3D printer.
It is. That's a great way to put it.
And the implications are huge.
They are.
We could use less concrete.
Which is,
Which is terrible for the environment.
a big source of emissions.
And we could even have buildings that help.
That actually absorb the CO2.
As they're being built.
As they're being built. It's like turning the whole thing on its head.
Instead of construction causing climate change.
It could help fight it.
Yeah. Pretty remarkable.
It really is. And it shows, what this research is all about.
What's that?
It's about figuring out how to work with nature.
Yeah.
To build a better future.
But we also talked about those challenges.
Right. Those are important.
Like scaling it up,
Making enough of the stuff.
making sure it's going to last.
Durability, yeah.
The cost.
Got to make it affordable.
Right. So those are, big hurdles
They are. It's going to take more research, more people working
to
together
really get this to work.
to make it a reality.
But what I think is so cool is that
That's
this
the-
could go way beyond just construction.
Oh, yeah.
Like they talked about furniture, packaging.
Radical implants, even.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
It really opens up your mind to the possibilities.
It does. And so what's like the big takeaway for you from all this?
I think the big thing is we're at this point where how we think about making things, how we build things, it's about to change.
Okay.
This research, it's just one example of this whole field of biodesign.
Using nature to solve problems.
Exactly. And it reminds us that, the answers are out there.
In nature.
In nature, we just got to be smart enough to find them.
That's a great message. It makes me feel hopeful,
Me too.
If we can do this, who knows what else is possible?
Exactly. And that's what the deep dive is all about.
That's what it's all about.
Exploring these ideas, getting you thinking differently.
About the world.
About the world. Thanks for joining us on this one.
Thanks for listening, everyone.